No clothes, no problem, I'll keep you warm. This alien woman's strange and unexpected offer. Elias Mercer shivered violently as he crawled across the frozen landscape of the uncharted ice planet. His exploration suit was failing, and the cold seeped through every layer, reaching into his bones. He had been sent as a xenolinguist to make contact with new civilizations, but he hadn't expected to nearly die from a simple environmental mishap. Each step felt heavier than the last, and the stars above him blurred in the frost-laden wind. He stumbled and fell face first into the snow. The icy ground bit at his cheeks, and he could barely lift his head. His lungs burned, and for a moment he thought he might never rise again. Somewhere nearby, the wind carried a strange sound, not like the harsh howl of the ice storms he had encountered before, but something soft, rhythmic, almost alive. Curiosity, or perhaps desperation, pushed him to lift his head again. Through the haze of snow and frost, a figure appeared. At first, he could not believe his eyes. The being walked easily across the ice, leaving no trace, moving as if the cold did not exist. Her skin shimmered faintly, reflecting the pale light of the distant sun, and her eyes held a calm, intelligent gaze that seemed to pierce through the storm. Elias tried to speak, but the words froze on his lips. The alien woman approached him without fear, kneeling beside his shivering form. She extended a hand, and without any hesitation, Elias felt a sudden warmth spreading through his numb fingers. The warmth was unlike anything he had ever felt. It was not from fire nor from any heater. It was alive, almost like the sun had condensed into her touch. "You are very cold," she said softly, her voice musical, almost blending with the wind. "Come with me, you will not survive long alone here." Elias wanted to argue, to insist that he could manage, but the cold was relentless, and his body was already betraying him. The rational part of his mind understood that he had no choice. He nodded weakly, allowing her to lift him gently. As she carried him, he noticed something unusual. She wore nothing. Her body, sleek and bare, seemed unaffected by the freezing air, as if the ice world itself could not harm her. "Where are we going?" Elias asked, his voice trembling. "To the sanctuary," she replied simply. "You will understand soon." The journey was short, though it felt endless to Elias. Each step, each gust of icy wind made him aware of how fragile human life could be. At last, they arrived at a structure that seemed to glow from within. It was shaped like a dome, crystalline and smooth, but the warmth radiating from it was unmistakable. Inside, the air was soft and comforting, the kind of heat that seeped into every part of the body. Elias sank to the floor, exhausted and amazed. "You are safe here," the alien said. "This is a place where beings share warmth. You will not freeze." Elias tried to comprehend her words. "Share warmth? I don't understand." She smiled, a serene, knowing smile. "Your species relies on clothing on machines. We do not need them. Our bodies adapt and we share energy with one another. You will feel it soon." Before he could respond, the cold surged back, and Elias felt a panic rising in his chest. His heart was racing and his body refused to cooperate. The alien noticed immediately. "Stay still," she said, kneeling beside him again. "I will help you." Elias watched, confused, as she moved closer. Her hands hovered near his body, not touching directly, yet the warmth intensified. Slowly, almost reluctantly, he allowed her to come closer. Then she said something that made him blink in shock. "You are very cold. I will keep you warm." Elias froze. "You mean—" He couldn't finish the sentence, his mind racing with confusion and human social rules. "Yes," she said calmly, as if it were the most natural thing in the universe. "You will survive because I will share my warmth. Trust me." His instincts shouted for him to resist, to maintain distance, but his body no longer had the strength for rational thought. Hypothermia clouded his mind, and all that remained was survival. Hesitating only a moment, he allowed her to press close. Immediately, the cold began to ebb, replaced by an intense, enveloping heat. It was unlike any fire he had known, any heater, any blanket. It was living, moving, and alive, as if the warmth itself was a conscious thing caring for him. Elias shivered once more, but this time from amazement rather than cold. He could feel her heartbeat, or something like it, synchronizing with his own. Each breath became easier. His numb fingers moved for the first time, and he slowly turned his head to look at her. I don't understand. How are you like this?" he asked, his voice weak but filled with curiosity. "We are connected to the energy of life itself," she explained softly. "We share what we have. We protect each other. Clothing is unnecessary because warmth is shared freely. Elias tried to comprehend this. His mind raced through everything he knew about biology, physics, and human survival. Nothing could explain what was happening. He was alive because of another being, and she offered this not out of obligation, but seemingly out of choice. Hours passed in this way. Elias, finally able to relax, began to study the alien as she maintained the warmth around him. Her movements were careful, deliberate, and entirely natural. He realized that while humans feared physical closeness with strangers, she offered it as a sign of respect and care. It was a form of communication, a language beyond words. As his body slowly regained normal function, Elias spoke again. You saved me." "Yes," she said, "and you will live. This is how we help one another. You must learn to trust, even in ways your species finds strange." Elias nodded weakly. Trust. That was difficult for him, harder than any frozen mountain or storm he had ever faced. But somehow the warmth he felt made the idea less foreign. In the quiet, his panic slowly gave way to wonder. "Why me?" he asked after a long silence. "There are others here, right? Why choose to share with me?" She tilted her head slightly, considering him. "You are fragile, yes, but your spirit is resilient. It is rare to see beings so willing to survive despite fear and uncertainty. That is worthy of protection." Elias felt a spark of pride mixed with confusion. Even in the most desperate moment, he had been recognized not for power or technology, but for something intrinsic. Somehow, humanity mattered here, not because of dominance or weapons, but because humans could choose to endure. By the time Elias was able to stand on his own, the storm outside had lessened. The alien still hovered nearby, watching him carefully. He realized how much he had learned simply by being saved, by experiencing trust that did not come with conditions or fear. "You must rest," she said. "You are not ready to leave the sanctuary. The cold will kill you if you go out yet." Elias nodded. I will stay." Her smile was gentle, almost approving. "Good. You must also learn that survival is not always about strength. Sometimes it is about accepting help, about understanding warmth in ways your species does not yet know." He studied her for a long moment, realizing that the experience had already changed him. What he had thought impossible, the intimacy of trust, the idea of warmth shared freely without expectation, was now a tangible part of his life. He was not just alive, he was learning a new way to live, to see others, to see himself. As he lay back in the sanctuary, surrounded by warmth that was both comforting and strange, he thought about the journey ahead. He did not yet understand the alien culture fully, nor the depth of the connection he had been offered, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty: he would survive. Not just because he was human, but because he had allowed himself to trust another being in a way humans rarely did. And for the first time since the storm had struck, Elias Mercer felt safe. Outside, the ice world stretched endlessly, cold and silent, but inside the sanctuary, a new kind of warmth filled him. A warmth that promised hope, learning, and a strange, unspoken friendship that defied everything he had known about survival. Elias Mercer woke to a soft light, filling the sanctuary. The warmth around him was steady, comforting, and unlike anything he had ever known. For a moment, he simply lay there, listening to the quiet hum of life in the alien structure. The last storm had passed, but outside, the ice world stretched endlessly, cold and silent. Inside, however, the air felt alive, as if it pulsed with the heartbeat of those who lived here. Salith was nearby, moving with calm precision. She noticed him stirring and smiled. "You slept well," she said softly. "Your body needed rest." Elias rubbed his eyes, still adjusting to the alien environment. I think I understand a little more now," he said. "The warmth, it's like nothing I've ever felt. It's alive." "Yes," Salith replied. "It is our way of caring. We share it freely." "You have learned quickly to accept it, though your species often struggles with such trust." Elias nodded. "It is strange for me, yes. In human culture, we are cautious. We cover ourselves. We are afraid of touching, of being close to strangers. But what you do, it is more than that. It is kindness, trust, and something I cannot explain." Salith tilted her head as if studying him. "You are learning well. That is important. It is not enough to survive. You must also understand. Survival alone is easy. To truly live, you must share and accept, even in ways unfamiliar." Elias thought about her words. He had always believed survival meant strength, intelligence, and preparation. But here, warmth, trust, and willingness to accept help mattered more than anything. His mind slowly began to open to the possibilities of this world and of the beings who inhabited it. "You will meet others soon," Salith said. "They are curious about your species. They watch from a distance until they are certain of your intentions." "You have shown patience, and that is rare." Elias swallowed nervously. "I hope I can meet them without making mistakes." "You will," she said. "I will guide you, but first you must learn something important." She stepped closer, and the warmth surrounding him deepened. Elias felt a calm settle in his chest, easing every fear and doubt. "The energy you feel from me," she said, "is not magic, it is connection. We regulate temperature, emotion, and even stress through proximity and shared resonance. It is a gift, and it is offered freely. You may accept it or you may resist. Humans often resist." Elias closed his eyes, breathing slowly. "I accept," he said finally, "because I need it and because I want to understand." Salith's smile widened, faintly glowing in the soft light. "Good, that is the first step." The hours passed quickly as Salith explained their ways. Elias learned that the Aurelians had no need for clothing because their bodies adapted naturally to cold and heat. Sharing warmth was a social bond, a gesture of trust and care. Their cities were powered by living energy rather than machines, and their culture was centered around cooperation rather than competition. Elias listened, fascinated. He tried to imagine Earth adopting even a fraction of this understanding, imagining humans not divided by fear or difference, but connected by trust and warmth. It seemed impossible, yet he felt its reality here, in the sanctuary, in Salith's presence. Eventually, Salith guided him to a central chamber filled with beings like her. They watched him with curious eyes, but none approached immediately. Elias realized they were waiting, observing his reactions, his behavior, and his willingness to learn. He felt nervous but reminded himself of what he had experienced with Salith. That trust could bridge worlds. One of the Aurelians stepped forward. Their features were similar to Salith, but taller and more radiant. "You are human," the being said in a melodic voice. "We have observed your species for a long time. Few come willingly to our world. Few survive the cold long enough to learn." Elias bowed his head slightly. "I am honored to meet you," he said. "I hope to understand your ways and to learn from them." The being smiled. "Then you have already begun your journey. Understanding begins with acceptance, not explanation. You have accepted warmth. You have accepted guidance. That is more than most humans do." Elias felt a surge of pride and also wonder. The alien words were simple but full of meaning. He realized that his survival was not just luck. It was the result of his willingness to trust, to be vulnerable, and to accept help when it was offered. Over the next days, Elias trained with the Aurelians. He learned to regulate his own body temperature using biofield resonance, to sense the warmth of others, and to communicate in ways beyond words. He discovered that warmth could convey emotions, calm fears, and even inspire confidence. It was a form of language, stronger than any spoken word. Salith remained by his side throughout, patient and encouraging. They laughed together as he struggled with unfamiliar techniques, and she praised his persistence when he succeeded. Slowly, Elias began to feel less like a human trapped in an alien world and more like a bridge between two species, a link between humans and Aurelians. One afternoon, as Elias practiced sharing warmth with another Aurelian, Salith approached him. "You are ready," she said. "The time has come for you to leave the sanctuary. Humans will come to retrieve you soon, but your journey is not over. You carry something now that no human has carried before." "What is that?" Elias asked. "Understanding, trust, knowledge of connection beyond fear. You have learned to survive not by fighting or hiding, but by sharing and accepting. That is your strength." Elias nodded, feeling a sense of purpose he had never known. "I will not forget this. I will carry it with me, and I will share it with my people." The arrival of the human fleet was swift. Ships descended, sending beams of light across the ice world. Elias felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He had been alone, saved by an alien culture he barely understood, and now he would return to his own species. He wondered if humans could understand what he had learned. Salith came with him to the edge of the sanctuary. "Remember," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Warmth shared is warmth remembered. Do not forget what you have felt here. Teach it, live it. That is your gift." Elias took a deep breath. "I will. Thank you for everything." She smiled, a quiet, radiant expression that seemed to glow even brighter in the icy sunlight. "Farewell, human. May your spirit remain warm even in cold places." The human shuttle landed, and Elias boarded, looking back at the sanctuary one last time. He saw the Aurelians watching him, serene and patient, their warmth spreading even without touch. A new understanding settled in his mind. Humanity could survive not just because of technology or strength, but because of trust, empathy, and the courage to accept help in unexpected ways. As the shuttle rose above the icy surface, Elias looked out the window, the stars stretching endlessly before him. The lessons of the Aurelians filled him with hope. He had learned that warmth was more than physical, it was emotional, cultural, and universal. Humans could choose to share it, and in doing so, they could survive and thrive in ways they had never imagined. Elias leaned back in his seat, smiling faintly. He had faced death and found life not through struggle alone, but through connection. And now, carrying that knowledge, he would return to his people, a human changed forever by an alien world and a stranger's unexpected offer. The ice planet shrank below him, cold and silent, but Elias' heart remained warm. He was ready for whatever awaited humanity in the stars, carrying the lessons of trust, empathy, and shared warmth wherever he went. And in that quiet, simple understanding, Elias knew that he had experienced something extraordinary: the warmth of life, shared freely, without conditions, and the power of trust to change the course of a human soul. Elias Mercer returned to Earth with a new sense of purpose. The human fleet had welcomed him with cautious relief, but no one could understand the experience he had just endured. He tried to explain the warmth of the Aurelians, the shared energy, the trust, and the calm he had felt. Every word sounded strange to his colleagues, and many dismissed it as delirium from cold exposure. Yet Elias knew the truth. Back on the shuttle, he had felt alive in a way that human technology or medicine could never replicate. The Aurelians had not just saved his body, they had awakened something in his spirit. And now, looking down at the blue planet below, he realized that humans had much to learn if they wanted to survive beyond the stars. When he returned to the research station, he was greeted by Dr. Liana Torres, his supervisor and longtime friend. Her face showed both relief and curiosity. "Elias, you're alive. We thought we lost you. What happened out there? Tell me everything." Elias took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "It's difficult to explain. I was rescued by an alien species. They do not wear clothing, yet they survive in extreme cold naturally. They share warmth, not just as heat, but as a connection. They saved my life." Liana frowned slightly. "Share warmth? How? Elias, this sounds unusual. Are you saying they touch you?" Elias nodded slowly. "Yes, but it is not like anything humans think of as touch. It is energy, trust, empathy. It is understanding life in a way we have never known." Her eyes widened and she paused. Then she smiled faintly. "You've always been the curious one. I suppose it makes sense that you would learn something new, something beyond human comprehension." Elias smiled back, though he felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him. "I learned that survival is more than technology or strength. It is about trust, about accepting help, and about sharing something deeper than words. The Aurelians taught me that, and I want to share it with humanity." Over the following weeks, Elias began documenting everything he could remember. He described the sanctuary, the thermal sharing, the way the Aurelians moved and communicated, and the lessons he had learned about trust and empathy. His colleagues were skeptical, but they listened. Slowly, the documentation grew into a report, then into a series of lectures and presentations. He emphasized not just the scientific observations, but the philosophical ones, the idea that humans could survive in the stars not by conquering, but by connecting. One evening, Elias sat in his quarters, staring at the stars. He remembered Salith's final words: "Warmth shared is warmth remembered." He thought about the sanctuary, about the quiet glow of life there, and about how much he had changed. He wondered if humans could ever learn to trust each other in the same way. Weeks later, a message arrived from the Aurelians. Though it was simple, the translation carried weight beyond words. "You have returned. Share what you have learned. Humanity has potential." Elias read it aloud to Liana, who raised her eyebrows. "They are sending you messages already? That is remarkable. Do you think humans are ready?" Elias smiled faintly. "Not yet, but they must try. Survival is not about power alone. It is about understanding. If we do not learn this, the stars will remain cold and empty to us." With renewed determination, Elias organized a team to study the principles he had learned. They experimented with biofield resonance techniques, exploring ways humans could regulate warmth, calm stress, and communicate emotion in extreme conditions. At first, the experiments were clumsy. People laughed, called him eccentric, and struggled to believe that sharing warmth could make a difference. But slowly, results appeared. Test subjects felt calmer, more focused, and more connected with each other. Teams working in simulated cold environments reported better coordination and morale. Elias realized that the Aurelians' lessons were not just philosophical, they were practical. Human survival in space might depend on this new understanding. One night, as he worked late in the lab, Liana joined him. "You've changed, Elias. I see it in the way you speak, the way you act. It's inspiring. I never thought I'd understand your experiences, but I can see their effect. You are bringing something important to humanity." Elias nodded, grateful for her words. "It is more than I could have imagined. The Aurelians showed me that trust is not weakness. Sharing warmth, sharing care, it is strength. We can survive not by domination, but by connection. That is what humans must learn." Months passed, and word of Elias' research spread. Other human teams began experimenting with similar techniques, learning to share energy, calm each other in stressful situations, and work together in ways that went beyond technology. Slowly, a small cultural shift began, as people realized that survival depended not just on machines or weapons, but on empathy, cooperation, and the willingness to accept help. One evening, as Elias looked up at the night sky, he felt a familiar presence in his mind, the quiet, steady warmth of the Aurelians, particularly Salith. Though she was light years away, he sensed her encouragement. It was as if she were reminding him that the lessons of the sanctuary were meant to spread, not just remain in memory. He remembered his first moments with her, shivering and weak in the cold, and how strange her offer had seemed. Yet that strange and unexpected kindness had saved him, changed him, and now had the potential to change humanity. Elias realized that survival was not just about life, it was about legacy. The warmth shared, the lessons taught, and the trust extended could ripple across generations, shaping humans into beings capable of thriving in the stars. Elias was called to speak at an international conference about space exploration and human survival. As he stood before scientists, explorers, and diplomats, he took a deep breath. He spoke not of alien technology, not of conquest, but of something far simpler and yet more profound: trust, connection, and warmth. "Humanity can survive in the stars," he said, "not because we are the strongest, but because we can learn to trust each other, to share, and to accept help when we need it. There are civilizations out there, like the Aurelians, who have shown us that survival is more than machines. It is about understanding life in ways beyond fear." The audience was silent at first, then began to nod, murmuring agreement. Elias felt a surge of hope. He saw the beginnings of a shift, a spark that might one day lead humanity to survive and thrive in ways he had only glimpsed on the ice world. That night back in his quarters, Elias felt the same warmth he had known in the sanctuary, not physical but spiritual. It was the warmth of understanding, the knowledge that one act of trust could ripple outward to change countless lives. He smiled to himself, remembering Salith's words once more. "Warmth shared is warmth remembered." And Elias Mercer knew that the warmth he had experienced, the lessons he had learned, and the trust he had accepted would not be forgotten. Humanity had a chance, and he would be there to guide them, to remind them that survival was not about fear, but about connection. As he looked out the window at the stars stretching endlessly above, Elias felt alive in a way he had never felt before. The universe was vast and cold, but within it, he carried the warmth of a strange and extraordinary world, a gift from a being who had shown him the power of trust. He understood now that the journey was only beginning. Humanity had much to learn, and he had much to teach. But he was ready, and with the warmth of the Aurelians guiding him, he knew that humans could thrive among the stars, not by dominating, but by sharing, trusting, and remembering that the simplest acts of care could become the greatest strength. The ice planet that had once threatened his life was far behind him, but the lessons it had taught were forever within him. Elias smiled, knowing that one day humans would look to the stars and find not just survival, but understanding, warmth, and hope. And somewhere in the vastness of space, Salith watched, calm and radiant, knowing that her strange and unexpected offer had changed not just one human, but perhaps the destiny of an entire species. Elias Mercer had spent months back on Earth, sharing the lessons he had learned. From the Aurelians, teams of scientists, engineers, and explorers had begun experimenting with the techniques of warmth sharing and trust-based communication. Slowly, the human approach to survival in space was beginning to change. But despite all progress, Elias felt there was more to learn, more to see, and more to understand. One quiet evening, as he reviewed the data from the latest tests, a strange signal arrived. It was unlike anything the human equipment had detected before, a soft pulse, steady and rhythmic, carrying a pattern of warmth-like energy. Elias' heart raced. He recognized the signature immediately. It was Aurelian in origin. The signal formed words in his mind, clear and simple. "Return. There is more to share. The stars are ready for you." Elias felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. He had survived the ice world, learned from the Aurelians, and helped humans take the first steps toward a new understanding. But this message suggested that the journey was not over. It was an invitation, a challenge, and perhaps a test of everything he had learned. He prepared quickly, gathering supplies and consulting with his team. "I have to go back," he told Liana. "There is more the Aurelians want to teach us, more that humanity must understand before we can truly explore the stars safely." She studied him for a long moment, concern and admiration in her eyes. "You are the only one they trust enough to return," she said. "Be careful, Elias. Remember everything you've learned. Trust is your greatest tool." Elias nodded. "I will. And this time I will learn more than just survival. I will learn what it means to thrive." The journey back to the ice planet was faster than before. This time, the human fleet had new equipment inspired by the lessons of the Aurelians. Heat-resistant suits that complemented human biology, systems that allowed energy-sharing experiments, and devices designed to track biofield resonance. Still, Elias knew that no machine could replace the understanding he had gained directly from the Aurelians themselves. As the fleet approached the frozen world, Elias felt a familiar pulse of warmth in his mind. It was Salith, waiting for him. The sanctuary glowed faintly against the icy horizon, a beacon of life in the vast cold. This time, Elias did not hesitate. He stepped forward, ready to embrace the unknown and whatever lessons awaited. Inside the sanctuary, Salith greeted him without hesitation. "You have returned," she said, her voice calm and melodic. "You have learned much, but there is still more to understand. Humanity is ready to take the next step." Elias smiled. "I am ready to learn." The days that followed were filled with new experiences. The Aurelians introduced him to more advanced techniques of energy sharing, showing how warmth could extend beyond physical proximity, how thoughts, emotions, and intentions could be conveyed across distances using subtle energy fields. Elias practiced daily, learning to sense the feelings of others, to calm fear remotely, and to inspire trust across space. It was not always easy. Sometimes his human mind struggled to accept what the Aurelians demonstrated. The sensations were unlike anything humans had experienced. He would try to mimic their methods and fail or misinterpret the signals of other beings. But Salith was patient. She guided him gently, correcting him without judgment, encouraging him to keep trying. "You must remember," she said one day as they practiced, "trust is not a command. It is an offering. You cannot force it, nor can you demand it. You may only share it and allow others to accept it freely. That is the essence of survival among the stars." Elias nodded slowly. The lesson resonated deeply. He thought of his colleagues on Earth, many of whom struggled with suspicion and doubt. The key to survival was not just advanced technology or powerful ships. It was connection, shared energy, and the willingness to believe in each other. As the weeks passed, Elias began to experiment with applying these lessons to his human companions remotely. He sent subtle energy pulses through the fleet's communication systems, guided by the techniques Salith had taught him. Slowly, he noticed a difference. Crews on long missions became calmer, more coordinated, and better able to face the challenges of deep space. One evening, after a long day of training, Elias sat with Salith in a quiet chamber of the sanctuary. The air was soft and warmth flowed gently around them. He looked at her, a question in his mind. "Salith, I understand now that trust is strength, but what about fear? Humans are afraid of so much: failure, death, the unknown. How do we teach them not to fear?" Salith considered him carefully. "Fear is natural. It cannot be removed completely, but it can be guided. By sharing warmth, by demonstrating care, by showing that help is available even in the coldest and most dangerous places, fear loses its power. Humanity will learn this through example, through experience, and through teaching what you have learned here. Elias nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. He had been given a gift, a knowledge that could save countless lives. But it was not enough to understand it himself. He had to teach, inspire, and guide. And perhaps one day, humans could pass this understanding to others they met in the stars. One day, Salith led Elias to a distant part of the sanctuary he had not seen before. There, enormous crystalline structures pulsed with energy. The Aurelians explained that these were life amplifiers, devices that enhanced their natural energy-sharing abilities, allowing them to connect with beings across great distances. Elias marveled at the structures, realizing the potential applications for humanity. "This is what your species could one day achieve," Salith said. "Not by building machines that destroy, but by building systems that connect, that allow empathy and trust to travel even where physical presence is impossible." Elias felt a surge of inspiration. He imagined human ships equipped with such systems, crews able to share warmth, calm fear, and cooperate flawlessly in hostile environments. The universe would no longer seem cold and lonely. Humans could thrive not just by surviving, but by connecting, understanding, and growing together. Weeks later, the human fleet returned to the sanctuary to observe Elias in practice. They watched as he demonstrated the techniques of energy sharing, guiding small groups of humans through exercises that seemed impossible at first. Slowly, the crew members began to sense the warmth, the subtle energy, the connection that Elias had learned from the Aurelians. Smiles appeared on their faces, fear and tension eased. They realized that survival was not only about skills or machines, it was about connection, empathy, and shared purpose. Elias felt a sense of fulfillment he had never known. The lessons of the Aurelians were spreading, not just within him, but through humanity itself. He knew that this knowledge could change the course of human exploration forever. One night, as he rested in the sanctuary, Salith approached him. "You have done well, Elias. Humanity is beginning to understand. But remember, your work is only beginning. The stars are vast and many will need guidance. Trust will be your most powerful tool and warmth your strongest shield." Elias smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace. "I understand. I will continue. I will share what I have learned, and I will help humanity survive, not through fear or force, but through trust, warmth, and connection." The ice planet outside glowed faintly under distant starlight, serene and beautiful. Elias knew he would return to Earth soon, carrying not only the knowledge of survival, but the wisdom of thriving in the universe. He had learned that humans could succeed in ways that no machine, no weapon, and no technology could achieve alone. Survival depended on the courage to trust, the willingness to share, and the understanding that warmth, physical, emotional, and spiritual, was the key to life among the stars. As he gazed at the stars, he felt the familiar pulse of Salith's presence, a calm reminder that he was never alone. The lessons of the Aurelians, their kindness, and their trust had shaped him. And now, with the knowledge and skills he had gained, he would shape humanity's future in the stars. The universe was vast and cold, but Elias Mercer carried warmth within him. And with that warmth, he knew humanity could explore, survive, and thrive, not by conquering, but by connecting, trusting, and remembering that even the smallest acts of care could illuminate the darkest reaches of space. And somewhere, far across the galaxy, Salith watched with quiet pride, knowing that her strange and unexpected offer had grown into something extraordinary, a spark of hope that could change an entire species forever.